Good evening, Snowline. My name is Ryan Holman, Superintendent of the Snowline Joint Unified School District. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome all of you to another town hall event, done virtually, of course, because we are in a pandemic right now. And so I'll start just by saying I hope all of you are doing very well, staying safe, and please know on behalf of the entire Snowline Joint Unified School District, particularly the Board of Trustees, I want you to know that we all miss you. We miss you dearly, and we hope that we can get together soon. And in terms of getting together soon, there's a segue right into tonight's event. What we're endeavoring to do here is to provide a platform, right, like we've done before, to answer the questions that all of you have sent to us, and will maybe quite well will be sending to us during this event around the notion of the elementary school reopening. As I think everyone's aware, we have a target date of Thursday, March 11th, that's next week, for us to reopen all 6 of our elementary schools to in-person learning in a hybrid model. And so tonight will be built around all of the real important and fundamental aspects of that design, so that all of you out there, and hopefully those of you who can't be with us, that you will then in turn share with those folks. You will tell all of them what we're trying to do to really get to a place where we're going to have kids back in in-person learning, all the while still maintaining choice for all families who prefer to maintain the at-home learning. So with that quick background, I just want to give some quick introductions and words of thanks. And that the quick introductions are to the other 3 individuals who will be answering questions tonight. And they're just such instrumental individuals in the operations of the school district, as well as all the work that I do. And those are our 3 assistant superintendents, Dennis Zimmerman, Alan Miller, and Robert Chacon. Just so very much looking forward to working with them here tonight. You're going to see them on the screen as we work through the questions here tonight. And I just have to say before we get going, to Rick Hernandez, James Fields, and Nancy Stapp, who are behind the scenes to make this opportunity occur. I will say to everyone, this doesn't occur very often in my goings through the high desert as well as San Bernardino County. And so I'm really proud of the work that is done by those 3 individuals I just mentioned behind the scenes, as well as Robert Chacon, to make this come to all of you in this setting. So enough from me in terms of this introduction. Let's get right into this. Alan Miller, Assistant Superintendent of Student Learning Support Services, he's going to assist me right now because we have a presentation to start. We're going to start with a presentation and then get into the question and answer session as soon as we can, all the while looking toward about an hour to be able to answer all that you have put forth for us. And so with that, what should be up on the screen for all of you again is the presentation portion. And you can see right there that title page. And so Alan will do well to get us to the next slides as I ask him. And so Alan, as we go to slide 2, let's just start in this kind of what, how, and ultimately why scenario. And I'll give you the what's real quickly. What we're endeavoring to do, as I just mentioned, is to give all of you the information you need around the reopening of our elementary schools, but also stay focused on the continuance, how we continue to provide an option of the at-home learning designs. And so if that's what we're endeavoring to do, let's talk about how, Alan. On slide 3, what you'll see is the agenda for today, and really tried to simply put it in a show, tell, and answer design. That show of the video, I want to thank James Fields, who is the director of our marketing and public relations risk management, who put forth the video out to all yesterday, and it's still available. If you haven't seen it, certainly access it. It will allow all of you to see what the safety measures and protocols look like, how they're going to be implemented once we return to the in-person learning effective next Thursday. Now, moving down after the video, I'm in this tell part about this whole idea of this presentation. We'll give you some answers to some of the questions we've already seen and we've heard all along, so that you really have a good foundation about how this will work before also in the very end game answering those questions directly. So on slide 4, Alan, as we move forward, let me just share with all of you a slide that I've shown for every single board meeting, probably dating back to April or May. And this slide right here, I think, is important because it talks about the 2 learning designs that I've already mentioned. At home, we've been thrilled to offer 2 designs that are still in effect, right? The remote school and homeschool through Snowline Academy, and then in person when we can. You see that parenthetical? Well, we're going to talk a lot about when we can, and that, of course, is on March 11th. So with that in mind, and we go to slide 5, Let me get back to the reasons why we reopen elementary school. And in just very in short ways, the students truly need this, right? Students need this for their well-being and success overall, right? But let's not forget our stakeholders, beginning with our parents, of course. They've shared with us survey after survey their desire, a large number of them, to get students back to in-person learning. The research out there in science is really clear in terms of the value of in-person learning to students. If you're wondering about some of that research, Google a Tennessee study most recently, as well as a study out in Wisconsin, and the real value of getting those kids back under these COVID-19 conditions. I'd also say, too, that let's not lose sight of our federal, state, and local public health officials, as well as the government. From our new president, President Biden, who's talked about getting our kids back to in-person learning as rapidly as possible. CDC's new guidelines reflect that. So too do California Department of Public Health, the governor's briefing yesterday that many of you may have heard, as well as our local officials saying we need to get our kids back because of all of the reasons that we know why school is so important to them and their well-being now and in the future. And I'll just say real quickly that county daily case rate, it's been below 25 for more than 5 consecutive days. And in fact, as of today, is registering on the governor's platform at 9 cases per 100,000. So the data have been down quite low. And now as we go to slide 6, before we just move forward on all the details, why not? I just have to say this tonight. Middle schools and high schools, there are different rules. I want to make that very clear. They're not different Snowline rules. They're different because they come to us from the California Department of Public Health. And many of you might be out there. I've got an elementary school student, siblings in middle and high school. When can middle and high school open up? I'll say this real quickly. It's a different design. It's that purple tier, red tier that we talk about oh so often. And that is we've got to move out of the purple tier, which we're in right now, into the red tier for 2 straight weeks. And they have to, and 3 metrics have to be below those numbers you see: 7 daily new cases per 100,000 and 8% positivity rates in those 2 instances. Right now, today, those numbers are at 8.66. You heard me say 9.02. That was because that was a Monday rate. Today's rate on San Bernardino County's website is 8.66. Daily new cases, 4.28, you can see, and 5.21 on the positivity rates. So we're getting close, preparing for that outcome. But again, that's middle and high school, different sets of rules. Tonight, again, the focus on elementary school and its reopening. So, Alan, as we go to slide 7, I've said this often, and we're going to be as quick, as safe, and as tightly aligned with public health guidelines, and we're going to do it together as possible. And we're going to hear that time and again. And no one of those 4 areas, right, in terms of the speed, in terms of the safety, in terms of the alignment to public health guidelines, also the togetherness, right, that collaborative opportunity can stand alone. All 4 have to be present. We'll talk about that. So as we go to slide 8, Alan, we as an administration been very appreciative of our board of education, who've really supported us in the notion of staying tightly aligned with public health guidance from those 3 entities: CDC, right? Also the California Department of Public Health and San Bernardino County Department of Health. As we go to slide 9, I've talked about that. We'll see how it crops up. Most recent public health guidelines, and these are reflective in the efforts that we see through California Department of Public Health guidelines, and what our wonderful staff members at all the sites are endeavoring to prepare for March 11th, and that is universal mask wearing. That's right, all students, all adults, at all times. The notion of physical distancing, too, the second of the 5 really important components, all the time, not just in the classroom, but also outside the classroom, recesses, that's maintained at all times. Hand washing and respiratory etiquette, those are the terms that CDC uses. What we're talking about there, right, is keeping the hands clean on a regular basis and making certain coughing and sneezing is done in the appropriate etiquette into the crook of the arm to ensure, and of course behind a mask, of course, but making sure that happens on a regular basis. Cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities, we're always focused on that in Snowline, well before, of course, COVID-19 and this pandemic that we're in. But boy, it's the importance has been elevated, and that certainly is a focus of ours. We'll talk about it even in our school schedule. And then finally, when we talk about contact tracing and isolation, that really reiterates the importance of the physical distancing, of the stable groups, and ensuring that we've got those groups that are maintained in a very consistent fashion and physical distancing. So in the event that there is a positive test, or even just a concern that there might be a positive test, we can make certain that we can contact trace in the most narrow fashion, but also in the fashion that we need to ensure that we cover everything and isolate as need be. Alan, on to slide 10 as we move along here. I want you to know that our COVID safety plan has been submitted for approval. It is on the website. Feel free to access it as you see fit. And it's not lost on all of you. We have been very fortunate, as have all schools, receive significant funding to ensure that the safety measures are in place. And people have asked, what are some of the expenditures? Certainly on PPE, right? That first item right there. Also barrier, signage, ventilation, hand washing stations. The list goes on. Those monies used to prepare ourselves for March 11th and beyond, of course, to basically ensure as best we can the safety for each and every individual. Certainly our students first, but all individuals on campus. As we go to slide 11, Alan, we're getting toward the end here. I'll just remind all of you about this slide. When we can. Well, when can we? We can do it now because it's allowable in San Bernardino County. And Alan, on slide 10, just to reiterate, let's talk about what a schedule might look like. And we think about it at the elementary school level as three groups of students, group A, B, and C. Just to keep it simple, there's no significance in those letters other than to just identify different groups. Student group A who choose to go, and again, I want to emphasize, choose to go to in-person learning. Mondays and Tuesdays would be in person at the school, Thursdays and Fridays at home. Group B, just the opposite. Mondays and Tuesdays would be at home, Thursdays and Fridays would be in person. Hey, Ryan, what about Wednesday? Well, certainly the Wednesday is when all students are at home, and that's reflected in the student group C. Those who choose to stay in the at-home model will then be able to have Monday through Friday at home. And so that's the general design. But what does it look like, Alan, on slide 13? Here's a graphic that hopefully helps out. And you can see group A on the top and group B, because they're the ones engaged in in-person learning on 2 days of the week, at-home learning the other 2 days. And what the term that was used really in the beginning of this pandemic was the notion of deep cleaning. We deep clean every day, but that's going to be a day, of course, when all the students are off the site, but learning continues remotely. So thank you for that, Alan. We'll just get ourselves to hopefully wrap up. And people hear me say this often. I truly believe in it. And certainly here's a time to believe in the notion of together truly is better in terms of the outcomes that we achieve. So Thursday, March 11th is the very first day. And what that will look like for those schedules, students in Group B will be in person. Students in Group A will be at home. Students in Group C will be at home. And also the meals will continue for all of those groups. Transportation, of course, is available too. You've probably been hearing about that because our school sites have been working so very hard to find out what preferences are from all of you. So know that information right there is what is how all the previous slides fall into one given day. And so, Alan, on to 15, and I just end with this one right here because I think it's a checklist for success as I share with you, because this comes to all of you right now because it came to me from our leaders at the school sites and the teachers and other staff members to say, Ryan, if you can send some messages, here are some messages that might really resonate for the families and others out there supporting kids. And first and foremost is, if you haven't already, communicate the choice that you want to your school sites as soon as possible. I know they're reaching out and have reached out. If you haven't gotten there, please do that for them. And also understand that it may happen in some instances, and that is a child's teacher may have to change. Now, all the school sites are endeavoring to not have to have that happen. We'll drill down to that a little bit, but I'll tell you right now, that's just because of the guidelines that we have to follow specific to public health. that really necessitates the notion of some changes might occur. Again, please know they're working hard to not have that happen, but it may occur. So please keep that in mind. Also, that third one, what we found from our other school districts in areas and when we've reached out, that staying committed to what your choice is the best way to maximize the success of your own child. We know that there might be some instances that arise, but really think that through. Seek advice as need be, through our schools, and then by staying committed to that, we've really found that that's the best way to ensure success from students, or for students, I should mention. That conducting daily wellness checks. Here's a real emphasis on partnership here. We know that you, as the family members, know your kids the best. We're always doing wellness checks. We've been doing wellness checks, if you will, well before COVID-19. Having been a teacher myself back, 27 years ago when I started, I learned very clearly that we've got to look out for every single child at every moment. But that being said, I want to emphasize you're the experts. Before you send your kids to school, do the wellness checks with temperature checks at home. But beyond that, how are you feeling? It's really important, and it really will take just a few moments to ensure that before you send them to school, that you check their own health like you would normally do, but really be diligent in that, and let us know if there are some symptoms, of course. And remember that at the preschool level, those wellness checks are a little different, and they're required to occur a little bit differently at the school sites, right? And that's per state guidelines. Again, you heard us say we follow those guidelines. Please, please, please know that there is a little difference, but your help always is a great, great assistance to the success of all children. I'll end by saying this, is just patience. As I have observed the leaders at school sites and the staff members, this is uncharted waters, to say the least. They're working so very hard to make sure that this is a great experience for all kids in groups A, B, and C. And so as we can work together, we thank you in advance for your patience, and we ask that you continue to do that so that we can really understand, as the teachers instruct, in effect, 3 groups, we'll all work together along this process for the success of every single child. So Alan, thanks for that. We'll get off of that slide there, and we'll get right into the town hall questions, because I know this is really important to any and all of you. And so what will occur here is I'm going to read the question. You're going to hear me mention the first name and last initial, and then we'll, as I read that question and get to the end, between the 4 of us, right, myself, as well as, again, Assistant Superintendent Dennis Zimmerman, Assistant Superintendent Alan Miller, and Assistant Superintendent Robert Chacon, we'll team up to provide you with the answers to all these questions, and we'll move as rapidly as possible so we can get to all the questions. So beginning with that, Rebecca W. Is our first question. What percentage of students will be allowed on campus for hybrid learning? And will the campus be completely closed to all staff on Wednesdays for deep cleaning? So first of all, what percentage? That percentage is going to be determined by the number of families who want to have their children attend that in-person learning. And so we have to follow the guidelines. And so no limitations in that regard there. But again, the limitations are driven by the guidelines, particularly physical distancing. And then that second part about that Wednesdays, at this stage, please, what I would say is that deep cleaning that is occurring on every day. And so staff should be able to be on campus to be able to work around that. Number 2 comes to us from Jeff K. When will full reopening occur? And I guess what I read into that there, Jeff K., and thank you for your question. What I read into that is, when can all kids come for every single day with maybe no limitations? And at this stage, we have to be out of not just the purple, not just the red tier, and not just the orange and yellow tier, but we've got to be beyond that. And so realistically, Jeff, I will share with you, I have heard no indications from any of the public health experts that we'll be able to get to that before the end of this year. I always remain hopeful, and certainly I would remain hopeful for the coming year. But with the last 2+ months left, 3 months left, I don't think we'll get to full reopening, as I read into your question. So thank you, Jeff, for that. Mary A. asked a question via email. I wanted to know if all common colds will be taken seriously because of COVID-19. She continues to say that, are temperatures taken with everyone who enters a school, and when the children take a break, Will there be close contact with other kids or 6 feet apart? Will that be the rule that we will watch? So working backward, yes, that 6-foot rule will always be there. Physical distancing is always critical. And that will happen not just in the classroom, not just in the lunch areas, recess, at all areas. When we talk about temperatures being taken, we talked about at the preschool level, that's a requirement. It's not occurring at our school sites. It's not a requirement for that to occur. That's why those wellness checks are so essential. But know that also we're doing those wellness checks that are beyond that at the beyond, of course, just the temperature being taken at all the times. And that means those common colds are serious. Absolutely. We have to ensure that any symptoms we need to know about, certainly communicate with your staff, your teachers and other staff members at the sites to ensure the safety of all. I'm hearing that I've frozen. Am I still frozen?
Hey, Ryan, you're good now. Thank you.
Great. I'm glad to be good now. And my apologies for freezing there. I know oftentimes I've been told that's the best way to view me, actually, is frozen and not speaking there. So my apologies for doing that. I'm a little worried, though. Did any of the questions come across? Okay, so they did. So it wasn't when I went into number 1. Okay, great. So let me give it another try there. I'll try to jump right back in. My apologies. And I'll just have to get some help from Assistant Superintendent Robert Chacon. Where did I freeze there?
Just your video was frozen, Ryan. Your audio was good, so you're good just to continue. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's great. I really appreciate that. And again, I just apologize to everyone having to look at me frozen for all that amount of time there. So why don't we move forward there? And please let me know again, just as they did. There's a great team there, so appreciate it. Let me know if I freeze or just keep me frozen, and I'll just click off my video there. So from Deborah N., she says, is or will the district be mandating employees be vaccinated? I appreciate that question, Deborah. I will tell you this. Our district cannot, nor can any district in the state of California throughout the, really the nation, right, be mandating that employees be vaccinated. Please know that, and it's not lost on anyone because I put this in our letters, really proud to be partnering with St. Mary's Medical Center. I want to mention my appreciation for them and all the school districts because we have been offering those opportunities. But again, that cannot be mandated until something is done at the state level. That is not in our purview there. So thank you for that question. Question 5, Juanita S. says, will parents be allowed on campus if so, will previous procedures be used? Will students have any physical activity? And so this is a great question here, Juanita, 2 parts. So let me just say the first part that I think applies across the system. The guidelines that come to us from the state of California are about limiting outside visitors. That's everybody. So the previous procedures will not be able to be used. Those procedures will be a little bit different. So I'm going to be really careful here because there are just small designs at each of the 6 elementary schools that they'll be communicating with all of you, just like recess plans and pick up drop off and homework and PPE being in school, in the classroom setting, snacks, all of those things. Know that our wonderful sites and those there will be communicating to you about those specifics. And relative to physical activity, I'm just going to use the notion of recess. Absolutely, that will occur, but it will look different, like so much, right? Because 6 feet of distancing needs to be maintained. Different types of activities will be more the norm and will, as in fact, look like a situation where kids are separated. But honestly, from what I've seen at other schools that have been open, as well as what I know about Snowline kids, they're still going to have a great time, even though they will be distanced. So thanks for that, Juanita. Aaron P. says, why are you guys pushing so hard to open schools? It seems like it really comes down to money, and you guys could care less about our kids' health. The bottom line is I really feel like it's all about money to you guys. Aaron P., thanks for the question. I will say why are we pushing so hard in the first part of that to open schools? That's because of what I said in that why slide. It is because we've got that ability to, of course, per the guidelines, but more importantly, because of our stakeholders and most importantly, our students who really thrive in that in-person setting, all the while knowing that we still maintain choice. When you talk about coming down to money, our money, not to get too detailed, our money for the school year really is guaranteed through attendance. And so attendance really is in both settings. So please know that certainly money is not the driver here. It really is about our students and their well-being and doing what's best for them at all times. Going to Ken Quinn. Ken asks in Spanish, so forgive me, I'll give it a try. He says, ¿Cómo será el tamaño de las clases en la escuela secundaria si volvemos en un horario híbrido? And what that says is, what will class sizes look like at the high school if we return on a hybrid schedule? So to Ken Q, thank you so very much. Hey, Ken, I will say this, great question. Again, our middle and high schools are working on those hybrid schedules. I will say this, if and when we get to that time when we can open, there's no reason why we won't be getting information out to all of you, including those who are working in the system. And I know they're working hard to be able to design what's best for kids in a difficult environment. So thanks to Ken Q. To Denise G. Denise says, my son is in special education and we have no internet access. His education and mental health is just going down. He has to be back in school. And I would just read into that yes, special education kids and kids not in the special education setting all are able to come back to the in-person learning setting as they wish. So thank you for recognizing education and mental health, the importance of that there, Denise G. To number 9, Janine M. Janine M says, why not have them go full day since sanitizing will be done on Wednesdays? And so, Janine, I read into this in 2 parts here, and I'm going to get some help. I'll cue him up, Dennis Zimmerman here too. It'll allow me to clear my throat a little bit here. But Janine, I'll just say this real quickly. Of course, that cleaning is done on Wednesdays and every single day. That's that day away. But when we say full day, that full day is not able to be done because of physical distancing. Zimmerman, you've been doing great work here. Can you add to that while I take a quick time out here to get a drink? Oh, oops, and maybe I'm sorry, I didn't time that very well. I know I do that often. I scare people away. So I hope I can scare him back at some point in time. That's my fault. I was not looking at the screen, but Janine, again, know that when we talk about that full day, again, we're limited by virtue of the guidelines here. And as we start this, I think what I can speak for Dennis Zimmerman here in this regard, or I know I can, is that we've got that basic structure to begin. And what I do know about all our school sites is as that process gets further developed, we'll see more and more opportunities for kids as the school sites are able to provide that given this startup. So thanks so much, Janine M. On to Amber E. Will parents have the opportunity to choose which group/days their child attends in person? Amber, thank you for the question. It's a very good one. What I can tell you is all the school sites are working very diligently. They're trying to make certain, first and foremost, that they keep siblings and those kids in the same households together. And so then when you talk about that opportunity to choose, I would just say this. Of course, you would probably know this, Amber. For everybody to choose, that would very much slow down the process. Excuse me. Slow down the process and make it really challenging. And so with that, we'll ask you that we also know that there are circumstances where we need to provide for instances that are unique. So certainly reach out to the school sites as you need to see what sort of support you can get based upon the significant challenge that they're dealing with in terms of scheduling everyone and as I mentioned, siblings as well as those in the household together. Thanks, Anne-Marie, for that question. Number 11 is Merlin S. And Merlin says, what has fostered the Snowline Unified School District to reopen schools with COVID-19 still raging? And that's Dennis Zimmerman, nice guy there, giving me some water. And then yet neither children nor teachers have received their vaccine. And should we as parents be concerned, what precautions will be implemented in order to avoid the spread of the pandemic? So taking this in parts here. So what is really led us or facilitated the Snowline School District to reopen schools. COVID-19 still raging. I will share with you that today's numbers, 8.66, those are the lowest daily cases that we've had in months, going back to before September. So that's a great sign, Marlon, and I want to share that with you. I'll also say, again, the guidelines allow for that there. We're not doing anything outside the guidelines. But what's compelled us even more is the need from the student standpoint, as I've mentioned, as well as the families and the research that says kids need to be back for that contact, that magic that happens with in-person learning, as the families so choose. And then when we talk about the other pieces in terms of vaccines, I want to be clear here too. When we look at all the guidelines from CDC that feeds into the California Department of Public Health state level, and then the county level, in no instances are vaccines required for schools to reopen. They're absolutely available to all. And again, it's just been a wonderful partnership with St. Mary's for us to be able to offer those, but again, not required. And then when you say, should parents be concerned? I'm always aware, me being a parent of a senior, myself, my wife and I have a senior still in the home, and the two girls have gone through the system, but they're in college. I will share with you, there's always a concern, I think, in a pandemic, but what I can promise you is every single leader right now and all the other staff members who are connected to the school sites are working incredibly hard to follow those public health guidelines. Remember that term, tightly aligned to the public health guidelines to ensure the precautions are being put in place so that spread, as you mentioned, does not occur. One final piece, check out the video online to look at some examples of that to ensure the success there. So thank you for that there, Merlin. And as I go to the next one, Krista C has the next one there. And Krista C says, will parents be allowed to keep their child virtual and decline a hybrid model? Hey, Dennis Zimmerman, can I ask you to answer that question there first? And I'll get my drink here and be ready to support too.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you, Dr. Holman. So yes, parents will have that choice. School sites, through their teachers, through a variety of survey methods, have been reaching out to parents to determine, is their student going to stay on remote learning, or are they going to come back in this hybrid fashion? Coming back and us offering the hybrid fashion, though, will change the current remote structure a bit as well, because we are working with staff and asking teachers not just to do different, but to do more, because we are doing our best to support students, and thus, blending some things as we are doing are going to create some changes throughout the system.
Yeah, Dennis, thanks so very much. I so appreciate that answer. Cindy A says, do you think middle and high school kids are gonna come back this year? I'll say this, Cindy. I think we will get that opportunity. I'm so hoping so. And if we get that opportunity, we're going to work as quickly, right, and as safely and as tightly aligned to those guidelines to make that happen. So I'm hoping so. But don't listen to me. I'll put this out there, the public health officials here, and I'll give you some, maybe a better predictor is the public health officials are indicating they think that we will go below that 7 number in sometime in the coming weeks. And so that will be a trigger for us. And so look forward to that. But again, we never know what happens, and we'll see what occurs as we move forward. Going to the next one, an anonymous one says, with school starting the 11th, when will we know what group our child will be in? I will tell you that's a case-by-case basis based upon the school setting. They are just working so hard. I mean, honestly, I'm so very proud. Look for that information coming as all of the other feedback comes from parents. That's why I mentioned that. Get your choices in there so that information can come back out as soon as possible. The next anonymous one is, are there safe reopening plans? Are there safe reopening plans ready to go? Have COVID precautions been put in place for the middle and high school campuses? Will Snowline be ready to implement in-person learning for middle and high school, as did the elementary? So I think we've talked about this one. Yes, the precautions, all that work is being done right now. And so very proud of how quickly this turnaround has occurred at the elementary level. And we're working as hard as we possibly can to make that happen at the middle and high school too. On number 16, again, another anonymous one. Will parents be notified of any exposures to COVID-19 that are linked to someone who came on campus? Yes, according to CDPH guidance. Thanks so very much to that anonymous question. So thanks for reading the guidance. I will tell you that guidance has changed greatly. We really appreciate that, understanding that. Yes is the answer. Dennis Zimmerman, you've been working really hard with this one. You want to provide any additional details that you think our listening public will appreciate?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Holman. With COVID cases on campus, we'll adhere to the California Department of Public Health guidelines for that. So in the case of a positive COVID test for students and or staff, we will contact trace, we will notify county health department, and we will notify people who were in close contact. And depending on the situation, notices will go out to larger groups of people. Close contacts are the ones, what for sure will be notified. Close contacts will be excluded, as well as the positive case, as we work through the situation with public health in that regard.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dennis. Really appreciate your help there. Ashley P says, when schools reopen, how will it work if we want to send Snowline Academy students back to in-person learning? So if that is something that you're considering, Ashley, I'd urge you to contact the school that your child would return to if your child was already there, or you're considering. Make that contact, and all that can be worked out between the two schools. Again, just another good example of the power of partnerships here, and our families like you actually working with our sites for good outcomes for kids. Jessica J says, will COVID testing and vaccines be mandatory for students? So at the elementary school level, that is a no in that instance. So that will not be the case. And really moving forward, we don't see that being the case, of course, for middle school and high school. So thanks for asking that question. Lauren B says, what is your recommendation for students who may have underlying health conditions, specifically asthma? Additionally, what is the protocol if an asthma attack occurs on campus, and how does that correlate with the requirements of masks? All great questions, Lauren B. Thanks so much for bringing this to our attention. I will say this, Lauren B. Please, first and foremost, is talk to your healthcare provider, specifically a doctor who is working directly with your child who has asthma. I am certainly by no stretch of the imagination maybe an expert in anything, let alone asthma. So, and anything on the medical side. So please get that recommendation based on everything we're giving you today with your doctor. When you talk about the protocol, though, our health technicians who do outstanding work will be on campus. And just as would occur in the regular in-person setting, we're going to care for kids at the highest levels that we always commit to when issues like that occur. And then how does this correlate with the requirements of masks? So again, universal masking is required. If in fact there are medical reasons why that might not be the case for a child, in your case, your child, Lauren, work again with your medical professionals to find out what those recommendations are and keep our staff members aware of what's going on and what's best being recommended at the healthcare level by the health professionals, because there are some instances where adaptations can be made based upon medical professional recommendations. Thank you, Lauren B. Jen ends up asking us here that when will elementary students be able to participate in extra activities again, such as in-person band, choir, and running club? Again, Jen, this is a great example of what might be happening at each site. What I can tell you is this, is band, choir, and running club can occur based upon the same requirements in terms of physical distancing and all the other safety protocols that need to be in place. So look forward to hearing, Jen, from your specific site, your leader, principal and assistant principals if they have one, and all the teachers and other staff members to share with you as that gets rolled out to our students. So thank you for asking that question. Another anonymous one says, if the county area stays in the red tier, what does the hybrid learning look like for middle and high school? 1 to 2 days a week. I'll just say, to make sure I don't take away our time from elementary school, please know that if we get into the red for 2 weeks, then what happens is that hybrid model, very similar, I say very similar, that's too strong, in a similar type of design, right, will be able to occur at the middle and high school levels. Nelson O says, will buses be available to all children? Will masks be required? And how will the classroom be set up? Maybe take this in a couple parts. Hey, Robert Chacon, why don't you take the buses there? It's certainly your team members there, and talk about all the good work being done with transportation.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And great question. Transportation, it's going to be pretty unique moving into the beginning of school. So currently what we're doing is Shannon Barassa, our amazing transportation director, has been reaching out individually to students, checking to see if they will require transportation services. And as your teachers are contacting you, asking if you're coming to in-person or staying remote, they will also be asking about transportation services. So we'll be reaching out to students and parents individually to make sure that we're providing transportation if needed. There will be several safety precautions on our buses as our students are getting transported to and from school. They'll have to wear masks. It's going to be one student per seat. But if there are siblings or cousins or someone in the household, those groups of kids may sit together in a seat. And in between routes, our buses will be completely sanitized and disinfected by our bus drivers. Bus drivers will also be masked, and we're going to try to work personally with our students and parents to make sure that we're providing good, safe transportation to and from school.
Thanks so much, Robert. Now, Alan Miller, can you really drill down on the notion of what those classes look like? Certainly an area of expertise in your regard there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. It'll be my pleasure. In regards to classes, the classes will, just not to oversimplify things, there'll be about a 50%, say if everybody decides to return. So if we have a class of 20 students, for instance, there would be 10 students in that AA schedule and 10 students in that BB schedule, so that they'll be safely spaced. They'll have masks. There'll be protective shields on the desks to provide an added layer of protection for the students as well. So, we feel very confident that we have the PPE supplies and the spacing in the classroom to create a very safe learning experience for students.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alan. Really appreciate you and Robert and your answers there for sure. Laura G talks about ventilation. She says, we know that ventilation is a very important component of virus prevention. Air filters alone don't meet this need. Will schools be required to open windows and doors to allow for air circulation? Laura G, the notion of required, that's maybe the strong term, but that is an important part to the ventilation requirements here. And I'm going to ask Robert Chacon to talk about the good work that's been done on the maintenance and operations side specific to ventilation that certainly has been incredibly important to our I'll call it the COVID-19 safety plan. Robert?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Great question. So the quick answer is yes. So we have been working, Rick Dawson and his crew, our director of maintenance and operation, and his crew have already replaced screens and filters, window screens on all of our classrooms so that staff can open windows to allow fresh air to come in. Many of our classrooms were lacking screens, so they went through and did a really big project on getting all of that squared away for our return. We are upping our maintenance schedule with filtration, our HVAC filters, so that will become more consistent once we get back into school as well. And then we are also looking at air purifiers in those classrooms that don't have windows that can be opened or doors that can be propped open. So we're looking at a variety of ways to meet those requests and to be as preventative as possible.
Robert, thanks so much for sharing all that about ventilation. Thank you, Laura G. Isaiah, student, says, why are you going to open schools while there's a pandemic out there? I think maybe we've addressed that, just to reiterate there, for many reasons, but want to make it very clear, right, that the science is very clear and that we're following, right, is allowing us to do so. and allowing us to do so in a safe manner. So thank you so much for that, Isaiah. RJ says, I love that the kids are going back to school. Thanks for all that you're doing. Thank you, RJ. He says, RJ says, is there a chance that the amount of days they attend elementary school would increase from 2 to 4 or 5 days? They'll say this, starting off with 2 days, and we know that plan, and we'll see what transpires. At this stage, the plan would be for 2 days to stay in that regard. But I'll also say this, as we move this cause forward this year, maybe even into next year, I mean, we don't know what next year will look like. What I do know about our school sites is they're always looking for ways to maximize that learning setting for kids. And so with no commitment there and no promises, because we don't know now, we'll certainly keep you all updated on that, RJ, because we appreciate the willingness for folks to say we want more of that in-person learning. Another anonymous question out there, and it says, is it possible that the numbers of COVID cases could rise in the county after the schools go on spring break? And that if that happens, Snowline would not have to close no matter how many cases in the community rise process, if you will. What is the protocol for sending kids back home or closing down a classroom? That's a great question there, specific to what could transpire. And I think in that first half, that is something that could happen, right? Know that the protocol that would be followed would be connected to our public health officials and them telling us what needs to be done. They monitor at all times any and all outbreaks that might occur in any, not just our school setting, but all school settings. And so based upon in that last piece, what's the protocol for sending kids back into the class from the classroom? We'll keep all of you informed about that. I think it's an important piece for all of us to understand that, again, if COVID cases increase, that we'll follow the public health guidelines and follow those experts and let all of you know. One final piece related to that, though, it reiterates the importance of us as a community. So proud of the community here collectively to drive our numbers down in our own boundaries. Let's keep using those preventive strategies, masking, distancing, hand washing, all those measures that we can do to ensure that we can keep those numbers down. But a great question there from that anonymous individual. Selena C says, well, hybrid teachers teach for 3.5 hours. What will the online teachers be doing? The hybrid teacher will teach 3.5 hours plus another hour, the AB group online. How much prep time will they get, since they will be planning AB in classes, AB 1 hour instruction, and Wednesdays AB combined for 1 hour of online instruction? First of all, Selena C, impressive in terms of how you manage the A's and B's, and we've even got C's on the outside too in that question. There are a lot of details there. What I can share with you is certainly some that would take a while to describe here. But Dennis Zimmerman, do you want to? You've been the one connected to this the most. Do you want to summarize for Selena C how that process will work for teachers as we navigate this new territory? Dennis?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Holman. Yeah, I don't have a specific answer to Selena's question, because these types of things are being worked out on school sites within our elementary reopening memorandum of understanding with our bargaining units in the district. And so that will be worked out there. Similar, though, to what teachers are doing now with remote students at the elementary level, I would believe that it'll be something in that fashion. But that specific, exactly how much and how much prep time are questions that school administration and staff are working on together.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dennis. Really appreciate that, Selena C. Teresa G says, when my first grader's behind the desk shield, will that first grader need to wear the mask? The answer is yes, right? Universal masking at all times. Those barriers, that desk shield, sometimes we call them barriers too. Those are extra, that's an extra mitigation factor, extra safety there that we put in place. So thank you for asking that question, Teresa G. Yes, again, to the mask. So anonymously on number 29 here, will students that cannot follow COVID mandates such as masks and distancing be immediately removed from classrooms? So thank you for asking this question. So just to share the scenario there, when children aren't following those guidelines, right, with masking and distancing, absolutely, we've got to correct that. If in fact that cannot be followed, it's a requirement. And so then we'll have to take steps to ensure that that is not occurring. And those steps could vary. Maybe the child's got a mask, it doesn't fit. We provide that child with the mask, right? Now all of a sudden it's working. maybe distancing is just not understood, and then teaching again is required. That's the job we're in, right? And we do very, very well. I'm really proud to see everyone doing that. We help those students to understand. But again, if there's refusal and there's no ability to do so, yeah, that just cannot occur in the classroom because it is a requirement. So thank you for sending us that question. Jennifer M says, if we fall in the red tier, will you bring back the 1 grade level at middle and high school as proposed by the governor? Jennifer, thanks so very much for bringing up the red tier and then the 1 grade level at the middle and high school by the governor. The governor did speak on Monday, and we're waiting for the details behind that. We're thinking we're going to get those Thursday, Friday of this week. We'll find out what those guidelines say. So I'm sorry I don't have a direct answer for that right now, Jennifer, only because we're waiting on those guidelines. Those guidelines, I will tell you, that we follow closely have changed multiple times, and for many good reasons. And I really appreciate when they're changed based on science. We haven't seen these guidelines yet, but once we know, we'll certainly inform all of you. Jessica C says, also, what about the kids who have speech, RSP, or OT? Are they going to be offered in-person classes now? So yeah, this is an exciting piece here, right? In-person available to really all of our students. Alan, I'll have you answer this one because I know you're working most closely in this area, and you can provide more details than I can relative to Jessica C's question. Alan?
Yes, thank you again, Ryan. The easy answer would be yes, that if online service, or excuse me, if in-person services can be provided by these specialists, students will receive them. The reason I just hesitate slightly is that it may not look perfect at first due to varying schedules of students and caseloads and things like that. For instance, occupational therapists have caseloads across the district. So we will, please be patient with us as we adjust those schedules so that we can maximize as much in-person service as possible for those students. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alan. I appreciate those details. Rebecca W says here, will a school close all person in, excuse me, let me read that one, Rebecca W. Will a school close to all in-person learning if a known case of COVID is detected at a school site? And what will the quarantine timeline be? That's a great question. The California Department of Public Health has guidelines in that regard, and they're guidelines specific to outbreaks. I think that's what this question is getting at, a COVID-19 verified outbreak. And when that occurs based upon contact tracing, if you recall back on my presentation, that number 5 of the CDC guidelines, I think, is really important in here because it's tied to the guidelines. So the short answer is it depends, right? It depends upon the contact tracing and what transpired in terms of how many people were impacted. Because within the guidelines, there are certain thresholds based upon a 5% threshold and a 25% as it goes to numbers of or percentage in terms of a classroom being closed down, and then an entire grade level / school being closed down, and then an entire district based upon how large the outbreak is. Beyond that, there, Dennis and Robert, I'll really offer it up to you too if you want to provide any more details, because it can get a little detailed, but I want everyone to know that there are protocols in place. We follow the guidelines. Dennis or Robert?
Now, those closing of classrooms, closing of a school, we will work with public health departments in helping us make those decisions.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. I appreciate that. And I just, again, give another plug for that notion of those stable groups, the distancing and following all the protocols limits those outbreaks, which then limits the closures that were asked in that question. So thanks, Rebecca W. Number 33, Andrew P., a student, thanks, Andrew, says, why do elementary students get to go to in-person learning before middle schoolers? They're more responsible than elementary school students. Yeah, Andrew, I will share with you the my quick answer is the elementary school, well, let me back up. The research about the younger kids indicates that the transmissibility, the ability for younger kids to transmit COVID-19 is lower than the older kids. And so all of the guidelines have been established, Andrew, around that science, that research. And so that's why elementary school students have the ability to go back sooner than middle and high school. But again, hopefully you've been watching here and see that we're getting close to middle and high school students being able to return. Number 34, an anonymous one says, if a child has to stay home due to exhibiting symptoms or possible exposure, will they be able to attend their in-school days virtually? That's a wonderful question. I really appreciate what's behind that piece. And I think it depends as well. The dependent piece is, again, if someone's exhibiting symptoms and how sick that individual is, that's certainly a situation where we don't want kids who are sick even get more sick, even behind a screen, right? And so we want always that health to be at the forefront. But when we talk about possible exposure, please know that we've got the ability to be able to serve kids in a different fashion and more often in this case. And so we'll look forward to our schools working out those situations to be able to support students and their success. So a great question there and a great opportunity as well. Alan L. says, I called Coram Porter's office and spoke to a representative, and according to this person, she said that it's up to the districts to adopt at least one safety protocol. My question is, why is the district adopting all measures? If students are seated in a desk 6 feet apart and with a plastic shield all around them, why do they need to wear a mask as well? Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. And what we've endeavored to do is to maximize that safety, the universal masking and that plastic barrier being an extra one. And I know the physical distancing, that can be challenging. We have adopted all of those to ensure the safety of students as well as the safety of the adults. And so, Alan, again, appreciate the question. And that's really our commitment to our community to be as safe as possible and aligned to all those guidelines as best as we possibly can. So from Alan to Josie G says, what if our child wants to finish the school year in the online style because they have gotten used to it? Is that acceptable? Yes, it's absolutely acceptable. And again, that's that choice that we talked about. Just please notify the school site of your choice. Thank you, Josie G. Ashley E says, for students in middle school attending cohort currently, will their schedule change if middle school can return? Example, they're attending in person 5 days a week. Well, again, that's middle school, and I know that we're not quite there yet. Please know that we will answer those questions. I want to get to a few more elementary school ones, but know that cohorts are going right now, and then when that in-person opportunity comes, we'll certainly be able to adjust that better, Ashley E, at that point in time. Gary Y says, why are we sending the student athletes back to practice and games without testing them to see if they're COVID positive like other districts? If the coaches are giving them the option to not wear a mask, how is this safe? So Gary Y, that's a question that I might need some more details in terms of the option, because I will share with you the CIF guidelines that are governing the athletics very much articulate when masks need to be worn. Now, it's different for the different sports, right? And different sports have the ability to wear a mask more often than not. An example of this is cross country. Most recently, we had our first dual meet last week, very successful. The Toronto High School girls and boys teams did incredibly well as usual, and know that they are to wear the mask as often as possible, but not during running. And so when we talk about that option, that might be coming into play, and I'm thinking that's the most likely one when we think about the question that you just asked. When we talk about student athletes and testing them, that's dependent upon the sport, and specifically football, and based upon the level tier that we're in. And so if numbers continue to go down, that testing won't be required. So again, it's kind of a what if there, Gary, and I'm sorry right now that we don't have that specific answer, because the numbers continue to lower and might very well eliminate the need, for that testing piece. So from Gary Y to Ariana A, Ariana says, will all students be returning to campus on March 11th, regardless of the group they're placed in? That will be Group B, because that's starting on a Thursday, and then Friday will be Group B going back that day. And then trying to get my work schedule situated, wanted to know if B will be returning to campus Thursday, Friday, and then the following week, Group A will attend Monday and Tuesday the first day. That is the schedule. Thanks, Ariana. We appreciate you reaching out, and hopefully that information is helpful. Genesis says at number 40, how many people will be able to attend? And when we talk about how many people, I'm assuming at the elementary school level, and I think the best answer I can give is that's contingent upon physical distancing. And so within a classroom, that becomes the significant limiting factor, maintaining that 6 feet of physical distance within the boundaries of a classroom, because that's the most confined space We think about the great ventilation question earlier. And so that's where we start, if you will, in terms of the numbers of kids being able to attend. That's why, again, too, I would say, so very important to get your feedback as to what your choice is. Jane D says here, as we come up against 6:30, and I'll answer Jane's question and just have an announcement in just a moment here. Have class schedules, cleaning schedules, and PBIS disciplinary procedures been modified to match reopening plans for each specific site? Each school is not the same. Resources and facilities are not equal. Yes, to those last comments, they are absolutely not the same, and they're not equal. And we do need to accommodate for unique situations. How about if I start with Robert Chacon and then to Alan Miller on the PBS side? But Robert, if you would start with those, cleaning schedules, and then Alan can talk about class schedules and PBIS. Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Great question. We have definitely adjusted cleaning schedules, frequency of cleaning, and actually what we are cleaning. We're going to be cleaning handrails, outside sinks, restrooms more frequently, playground equipment in between recesses. We've purchased fogging systems and disinfectant sprayers and several tools to help us ensure that we are disinfecting as frequently and as appropriately as possible in between cohorts on Wednesdays as well, but throughout the day. So this will be happening all day, every day. Totally just a new operation, a new way to do things, and pretty proud of our maintenance department, our custodial staff, our teachers as well, willing to jump in and help support this cause. So thank you.
Yeah, so well said there, Robert. And then to Alan, do you want to talk about certainly PBIS, those procedures, as well as anything you might want to say about class schedule?
Absolutely. First of all, PBIS remains to be a cornerstone in our instructional program across the district. I'm really passionate about this area, especially as we do an in-person return for our students. A big part of that PBIS component is, of course, to set those healthy, reasonable expectations for our students, but really to make a big push to reconnecting with our students. These students have been out of an in-person setting for so long that it could be overwhelming to many of them getting back to an in-person setting. So we want to be very supportive of that, but always staying with the integrity that we always have with in regards to our PBIS practices, making that very, very positive student experience and setting those healthy expectations that I alluded to. As far as schedules at the respective schools, I'm glad you pointed that out, Jane. We have really strived to focus on a similar but not identical expectation for our schools across the district. We want to make sure that they're able to operate in the best needs of their students and the families that they serve. But you will see a lot of similarities from site to site. But once again, you may see those unique differences too, as they best fit the needs of their individual students and families.
Thanks so much, Alan. I appreciate your comments too. Jane, thank you for the question there. Getting on to the last four is what we have. And so if you can bear with us, we certainly appreciate you staying all the way up until this point. We're just about done because we've just got about 4 or 5 questions left, knowing that the duplicate questions, if people are out there wondering, please know that we have tried to avoid the duplicate questions so we can get to all what we might call the different ones. And we're down to the last few, beginning at 42 with Shalyn. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Shalyn or Shaylin G says, I'm still not comfortable with my kids going back. When are the high schools supposed to go back? We talked about that. We don't know exactly when high schools will be eligible, but I want to reiterate right now, choice is there. And certainly if you're not feeling comfortable, by all means, you can continue to keep your child in the at-home learning setting. On to 43, Nikki R says, my question is, my students are actually enjoying the remote learning, so they want to stay home for the rest of the school year. One of my students wants to know, if she goes back for 2 days for in-person learning and stays home for 3 days, will the schedules change? Will her teachers change? Will the workload change? Another student who suffers from anxiety wants to know, if he tries to go back to in-person learning and doesn't like it, will he be able to go back to remote learning permanently? All wonderful questions there, Nikki R. I would say my big picture answer is contact the school. I will share with you, my experience has been each and every school site leader, administrative team, if you will, as well as the others from counselors and teachers who will be helping with this situation will be more than willing, I should say, to be helpful and support you in your two very unique cases. And that's really where maybe I'll drill down a little bit. You do have unique cases, and what I will share to you is get more information at the site so you can make that best decision for your two children, because absolutely we want to accommodate or make those arrangements as best we can within the guidelines and confines that we might have. So again, just reach out to your school site. And again, maybe a great example that you gave us that we appreciate being able to get to here in this setting and hopefully help others who might be in a situation like that. Thank you, Nikki. And to Rebecca W says, will schools remain in a hybrid format for the remainder of the school year? And will Snowline High School reopen as a hybrid format when in the timeline? So Rebecca W, our prediction is that hybrid format will remain for the rest of the school year, but that's a prediction. And I'm the first one to say I've been wrong on occasion. And the reason why I've been wrong in this case is really the pandemic. And we'll see where the pandemic takes us. But our plan is to move forward in that hybrid format because we feel confident that we're going to be able to be safe and maintain that outstanding in-person learning environment throughout the entire process. And we'll see where COVID-19 takes us. In terms of Snowline High School, again, once that threshold is reached in terms of getting on the purple tier, then we'll be able to notify all of you in terms of when that timeline will transpire for high school as well as middle school students. And then on 45, an anonymous one that gets us to the end of our list of questions here tonight. Why are students going back right now in 3 weeks? They're off for spring break. I believe that teachers should have the right to get the classroom ready and set up. With that being said, that week, and then should be for the teacher to plan and set up everything that they need. Yes, we do want our teachers to get ready. And yes, we have the capabilities to do that. Hey, Dennis, boy, you've been working really hard in this area, and certainly want to allow you to speak to this as the expert in this area, because there's some really things set up to be able to get the teachers ready. Dennis?
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. So yes, our elementary teachers do have some flexibility to prepare and get ready for that adjustment to in-person learning, and school administrators are working with them on that with a variety of flexibility as well. But also the question about, that teachers should have the right to get ready or do some different things. Like I say, principals are working with that. We just need to make sure that there is some equity involved for students that are continuing to learn and the teachers that are getting ready. So again, our elementary reopening MOU does spell out the floor for that time. And in some situations, sites are working with, additional flexibility as well.
Yeah, thanks so very much, Dennis. I appreciate that help there. Same goes to Alan Miller and Robert Chacon. Huge thanks to my assistant superintendent colleagues there who just done outstanding work in supporting hopefully all of you in that learning process. And I just want to thank the people behind the scenes again, to Rick Hernandez, to James Fields, to Nancy Stapp. They've just been instrumental in making this happen. We just so very much appreciate this virtual town hall setting. I just want to reiterate what I said at the beginning. I just don't see a lot of this out there, and I think the only way I know about this is I see and hear of the work that has to be done. I don't understand it, but I know it's a lot of work, and so I have to believe that this design isn't very common because it is hard work. But that really speaks to a segue I'd like to make, and that's to all the people you can see on the screen and have seen here today, as well as the ones I mentioned, and across the entire school district. This is hard work right now. And I just so appreciate the Snowline Joint Unified School District, 1,000 employees, roughly speaking, strong group here who does not back away from the hard work, doesn't back away from what I would say is the right work. And in this instance, not backing away from the opportunity to provide in-person learning to our elementary school students whose families, and I'm going to argue also too, whose students probably in many cases do as well, want to come back and get those human connections that have been mentioned by my three colleagues here. And hopefully I did it justice to the power, the magic, the wonderful outcomes that occur with in-person learning. Is this going to be easy? Again, you heard me use the term hard. It is challenging. It won't be easy. It's going to be different. And I just reiterate and that notion of patience, and really thank all of you watching, and all of the families who might not be able to be watching. Please share with them our appreciation for being patient with this process. I'm 27 years into this profession here in Snowline. I graduated from Snowline. I don't ever remember a time that was quite like this. And I think with my advancing age here, I think I too absolutely do understand how challenging it has been to get us to this point, but what an exciting point it is. And sort of what I would say is whether you out there choose for your child to remain at home or to go to in person, I'll say thank you. Thank you for what all of you have done to get us to this point. We appreciate the partnership immensely. We endeavor to continue to make that be powerful and even better than it is already. Thank you for this evening. Please have a wonderful rest of the night, and we'll look forward to, again, in-person learning for elementary schools starting on Thursday, March 11th. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.